There was a game-changing development in America's sports industry today. America's highest court has given the go-ahead to bet on sports across the country. Some experts say such a move could see 32 states offering sports betting within 5 years. A number of stocks leaped on the news. Let's bring in Howard Bloom, publisher of Sports Business News, to talk about how this changes the business of sports in the U.S. as well as push things around here at home. Howard, great to see you. What's the immediate impact of a decision like this from the Supreme Court?
Well, in the next couple of weeks in New Jersey, the great Garden State, you'll be able to go to the Monmouth racetrack and bet on sports. I'm sure in the next couple of months, the casinos in Atlantic City are going to have sports books and sports betting along the lines of what takes place in Las Vegas. And Peter, let me add this. The two biggest days in the year in Las Vegas are the Super Bowl and the first 2 days of the NCAA basketball tournament. This is a gigantic move forward in the sports industry.
And Vegas does, I think, they reported less than $5 billion worth of sports bets last year, whereas the total estimated market is something like $150 billion. Is the argument here, people are betting anyways, let's make sure it's being bet in the United States so it can be taxed and it can be used for programs and for general tax revenues in the United States?
Well, Chris Christie, who was the governor of New Jersey, that was his rationale. And of course, he's taking this as a victory. His term limit came out in New Jersey and he couldn't run for re-election. But that was the genesis, the foundation of this. Put the money, part of it back into the tax system and help it offset expenses in the state. But yes, $150 billion being bet with bookies across North America.
The most of the major sports leagues, the NFL, the NHL, were all against this. The NBA, I think, was the one exception there. Why did is the sport leagues, are they mostly concerned about match fixing? Because that just doesn't jibe with the numbers.
Well, let me just say this. They had to be against it. And here's a great case from 2017 and how in the information age you really have to be careful. The coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers suggested that LeBron James and Kevin Lowe would in fact sit out a game. Well, he changed his mind and decided they were going to play in that game. The Cavaliers were 12-point underdogs in the game when everybody heard that their entire team was playing in the game. Well, bettors found out about it. It came online, and all of a sudden, you had what could be a play on the game. It's the integrity of the game that matters.
I know this was a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, but will this push things a little bit further here in Canada? We saw recently an attempt to change the laws because you can bet here in Canada, but you can only bet in really limited ways. You have to do a parlay, which is you have to pick 2 or 3 sports or games at the same time. The VIG, the amount of money that the House makes off your bet is way bigger than it would be anywhere else. Does this push things along a little bit here in Canada?
Well, September 2016, Brian Massey, who is a Windsor NDP MP, he tried to put forward in the Commons a bill that would have made sports betting legal in Canada. And honestly, we talked about it back then. A lot of people thought it would happen. The Liberals are against it. The question is, it'll happen after the next election. Could the Liberals change their mind? They should change their mind. As long as it's regulated, as long as it's monitored, it is good for the economy. It makes money for the economy. And it's not a crime, but if you're going to call it, it's a victimless crime.
Well, I think more to the point, much like Chris Christie's argument in New Jersey, it's money that's being spent already. I mean, the estimations that I was able to put together today, $500 million go to the legal sort of pro-line sports bets that we see. There's $4 billion going offshore every year, and there's an additional $10 billion bet in illegal bookies and illegal sort of places to place your bet. That's an insane amount of money that we're just saying don't want any part of it.
Well, a lot of it's like being in Ottawa. There's a great casino on the Gatineau side. There's not a whole lot in Ottawa. For whatever reason, that's the way the Ontario government's thinking. It absolutely, Peter, must be regulated. The fear is, by the way, obviously people can get out of control, lose their fortunes and everything else. Well, there are groups that work with people like that, and you're right. It's an insane amount of money, and it's time that money stayed in Canada, didn't go to illegal bookies, and helped grow the Canadian economy.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thanks as always, Howard.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Howard Bloom, publisher of Sports Business News. Coming up, there's a proposal to cough up free land to developers in Toronto and Vancouver to create more affordable rental units. Yes, you heard me right. That's one of the new strategies Toronto's former chief city planner is proposing to the government. We'll have all those details and more coming up after the break. But first, oil and gas each traded a little higher today.